There are so many amazing sayings about what got you here won't get you there. If you keep doing the same thing, you keep getting the same result. You have to do something different to have something different, on and on. Well, I was working with a couple and they're rebuilding something new after betrayal. And she's the betrayed, he's the betrayer, and she was doing something that the old version of her did. And I want to tell you, because if you're doing this, you got to know. They don't spend a lot of time together, and this was like a week that they weren't spending a lot of time, and he had an opportunity to see friends, and she wanted to spend time, and then he said, "Is it okay?" And she said yes. Now, she didn't really mean yes. She was hoping he was going to get it and was just going to say, "You know what? I don't want, I want to spend time." But two things happened here. She wasn't being honest, and he assumed that it's fine meant it's fine, right? So she was actually, by not being honest, it was setting himself up for failure. Now, even if it is the most obvious no-brainer, that doesn't mean it's a no-brainer for someone else. And for the betrayer, this is an opportunity. It's such a fragile time when you're rebuilding that you always want to err on the side of caution, on the side of being more attentive and more loving and not selfish and thoughtless and self-absorbed and whatever, because that's the old stuff and that's got to go. So if you're unsure, ask, right? And if you're unsure, err on the side of being more supportive, loving, giving. It's got to feel different in order to have something different. And for her, yes, even though it's a no-brainer, it would have been more helpful for her to really speak what was on her mind and her truth. Now, I want to tell you something else that I see all the time too. When you're in this fragile rebuilding stage and the betrayer makes the decision to, let's say, do something, it could be the most innocent thing. It can be triggering for the betrayed because they're choosing another thing, right? Instead of, now they had that feeling of choosing another person over them, you choosing another person over them. So you choosing that thing, that whatever, can be triggering because it's that reminder. I'm not saying it's rational. I'm saying this is what we need to work through. So when you're in this position of rebuilding, in order to rebuild right, in order to rebuild differently, you need to assess, and I'm talking about both sides here. If the old you did it and the new you that you're forming doesn't want to keep that going, don't. And this is an opportunity to assess every thought, behavior, action. Do you still want to keep that going, or have you outgrown it? Does that stage 5 version of you do it, or have you let that go? This is a time to assess everything. And here's the other thing too. Not all relationships should rebuild. They have run its course. You are better off healing yourselves and moving on. However, for the ones who are choosing to rebuild, it is a complete and total waste of time to rebuild the same thing. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? If first you've been betrayed, which now has you feeling all of these things, and if the person who betrayed you isn't showing up differently, isn't showing you that you're safe and you're valued and they've changed, what are you doing? Why? Take a look at what that is and what's the reason behind that? And then ask yourself, if I wasn't afraid, what would I do? I'm not saying this stuff is easy. This is the work that I do and the work that we do with our members within the PBT Institute. But when I'm working with a couple, and these are members who are working with me at the Transform level, I'm not shaming or blaming, but I'm being straight with them. And if they're continuing to use the same behaviors that were before the betrayal happened, that possibly led to the betrayal, like that thoughtlessness, that selfishness, that self-absorbed whatever, or for the betrayed, I'm not suggesting the betrayal was your fault. It's your opportunity though. Were you not speaking up? Were you not being honest about what you needed? Were you not valuing yourself enough to say no to something, or whatever the case may be for you? You want to look at all of it. And if you're bothering to rebuild, you want to rebuild right. So just to sum up from their perspective with this couple that I was speaking with yesterday, even though it's the most obvious no-brainer to her, doesn't mean it's obvious to him. And I would rather she gets what she needs versus hoping she gets what she needs. He feels he's been set up to fail, and that's just not what you want to do. So look at this from the perspective of, if you're creating something new, you don't want to bring in the old good stuff, but none of the stuff that the 2.0 version of you no longer is willing to tolerate, have. You don't need it anymore. You've outgrown it, all of it. If you're going to bother doing it, do it right. I hope that helps.